Ed, can you read Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1 through 4?
I can do that.
This is so good. And today what I want to do is I want to go step by step as to how to be made whole again, how to overcome.
Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on earth. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord.
And that's from the regular Bible?
I'm sorry, this is whatever showed up on my Google search.
So I have the, did you guys say this is a Catholic Bible? Somebody told me that. It says New Jerusalem. Whatever. I have children, be obedient to your parents in the Lord. That is what uprightness demands. The first commandment that has a promise attached to it. It is honor your father and your mother. And the promise is so that you may have long life and prosper in the land. And parents, never drive your children to resentment. And parents, never drive your children to resentment, but bring them up with correction and advice inspired by the Lord. But bring them up with correction and advice inspired by the Lord, not inspired by your father the devil, but inspired by the Lord, not inspired by your father the devil. I'm adding that part. Apparently, Ted Cruz spoke at the Republican National Convention. And Ted Cruz is a Republican man who had wanted to run for president. He tried, but Donald Trump kicked him out of the water. And so he didn't succeed. As a result of that, during the primaries, Ted Cruz got angry at Donald Trump, and Donald Trump started calling him names, like lying Ted, right? And then apparently Donald talked about his wife and his father. And you don't talk about a man's wife. It's like talking about his mama. And they signed a pledge that whomever should win, they all would support that person. And as you know, it ended up being Donald Trump. And Jeb, Ted, and the guy from Ohio refused to sign the, what's his name? Casey. Refused to sign the pledge. They didn't keep their word. And Casey didn't even show up for the convention, right? In his own hometown. He could have walked over there. But the point is, I want to mention the anger aspect of it, and that Ted Cruz ended up really making a fool of himself at the convention. And he made a fool of himself because he did not forgive. He got angry during the primary. He held on to that anger. He did not forgive. So he went to the convention, and I'm sure he and his wife and his dad, and maybe his dad and others had talked prior, right? And he went to the convention angry. And rather than going there and doing the right thing, he went and did not support Donald Trump. He got booed. He was booed. Ooh, get out of here. And his wife was on the floor, and she started having a fit about the people booing her, so booing him. So they had to carry her out. And so as a result of that, for now, it looked as though Ted Cruz has really hurt his own career by doing something like that, not keeping his word. And Ted Cruz claimed to be a Christian. So you would expect more from the Christian. At least keep your word, if nothing else, right? Keep your word. But he may have ended up destroying his own career. And the point is, when you're angry, you end up making a fool of yourself, because your father, the devil, never stopped talking to you. In anger, he's always feeding you ideas. And if you're angry, all angry people are blind and they can't see. So it looked like what he's telling you, or telling Ted is the right thing to do. And so I can imagine Satan telling Ted, you know what, go there, be nice, say all these good things in the beginning, and then hit it with it by telling the folks to vote your conscience and don't support. And he's like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to do that. Because when you're angry, the lie makes sense. So he went there and he followed that. And so I was talking to James, my producer. I'm like, let's kind of look at his history, Ted Cruz's history with his father and mother. And apparently when Ted was around 3 or 4, I believe 3 or 4, his father left for a period of time, left the family. And so that tells me that Ted Cruz has a hang-up with his father and with his mother that he has not worked out yet. He is not forgiven. He is not overcome. And that's why Satan was able to convince him to do such a crazy thing, to even represent Christianity in a negative way. Because a lot of folks were supporting Ted Cruz because they liked the fact that he was a Christian. They said, oh, he's a Christian, a man of God. He's against abortion. He stood up against the rest of the representatives. They loved this man because he was a Christian, right? But he didn't represent Christianity that day because Christians do not hold grudges. They don't even remember your past. They don't remember what happened to them. They don't remember if you did them wrong or not. A real Christian don't remember that. But Ted remembered, he held on to it, and it nearly destroyed him. And that's bad for several reasons. It's going to hurt him in the long run. And it's a bad example for Christianity. Because a whole lot of folks are being turned away from Christianity right now because of the way Christians are acting. Not all, but the way they're acting. And that's why the Bible said, honor your parents. Parents, don't cause your children to resent. 99.99% of parents are causing their children to resent because they're not getting the instruction from the Lord. They're not raising children based on the guidance of God. They're listening to their father, the devil. And that's why they're messing them up. James and I, my producer, we stopped to have lunch or dinner, or extra snack. And we pigged out like we had not eaten at all because the food was so good. If you want good food, go to North Carolina. And when they feed you, they have like just chicken and barbecue and corn and everything. Banana pie, pudding. Don't say pie, pudding. It was just, they fill you up, right? And so we stopped at this cafe, and this young boy, 18 years old, was one of the hosts. You know how you walk in, and they greet you, and they sit you at the table. But right away, this guy started talking to us, and he came and sat with us, and he talked about he finished in high school, he going to the military for 40 years. He did say 40, right? For 40 years, 30 years, he's going to go in the military for 30 years. And he said that his father, we asked about his father, he said the last time he seen his father when he was 4 years old, that his father threw him up against a wall when he was a little baby, threw him against the wall and said, I never want to see you again, I don't love you, goodbye. And that's the last time he had seen him. And he said that out of nowhere, now I may be leaving out some of the story, but I want to make the point. He said out of nowhere his father called him when he was getting ready to graduate from high school. And his father wanted to come to the graduation. He said, about time we make up, and blah, 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 I want to come to your graduation. And the boy said, he told his father, I don't know why you want to come to my graduation. I was imitating him when he did it. He said, I don't know why you want to come to my graduation. You haven't done anything for me up until now. And all of a sudden you're coming out of nowhere. I don't know why you want to come. But if you want to, come on. And then he said, I forgive my father. I'm a Christian. This is what the boy said. I'm a Christian. I forgive my father. But he can come at it if he wants, right? So I said, okay, you're a Christian. You're forgiving your father. Your Father is reaching out to you. You're reminding him of all the things he did and did not do for you. You're going off on him and talking about, you can come back to you. I said, you don't forgive him. I said, do you think that God would treat you that way? Once you realize you were wrong and you want to return to God, he's not going to tell you, you didn't do this in the beginning, and now you want to come to me. He's just going to say, come on. He's not going to remind you of your past. He's not going to give you pain. He's not going to try to make you feel guilty and then invite you in. I said, you have not forgiven your father. And he thought he had. And a lot of Christians say, I forgive, but they don't. And so I'm starting to believe that they just don't know how to forgive. Because a lot of Christians say, I forgive you. They don't forget. And I'm telling you, one thing I know for sure, when you truly forgive, you do not remember the offense anymore. It's gone. And you will see that person and you forget that you were mad at them. And you're like friendly because you forgot that something happened. It's no longer part of your soul. It's no longer part of your memory. And you hear a lot of worldly people say, well, I'm going to forgive you, but I'm never going to forget. And you hear a lot of Christians saying that too. That is not forgiveness. Just imagine what would happen to us all if God forgave us but never forgot what we did. We would still be miserable. And there's no love in that. There's no freedom in that. How do you forgive but don't forget? That's what forgiveness, that's why I call forgetness. You know what I mean? But Christians don't play that way. And so this young boy said, wow, so I haven't forgiven. I'm going to have to go call my daddy tonight. Because he clearly saw that he had not forgiven. And so I asked, I said, what's your mother like? Oh, my mother is just perfect. My mother is wonderful. One of those, right? And so that was our experience there. Then I met a man who was a young man, 21, I think, who was married, and 25, his wife's 21? 22. And his wife's father is trying to get with her to try to work things out. And she's a Christian, he's a Christian, but she doesn't want to see him. I don't want to see him. Last time I saw him, he said, let's get together so we can work things out. And we talked, and at the end of the conversation, he asked for $200. So now I don't want to see him again. These are Christians. And I understand because I realize from those conversations and others that Christians don't know how to forgive. And that's why they're still suffering. Their children are still suffering. And that's why they're making their kids, causing their kids to be resentful, because even though they say that they're a Christian, they're still raising their children with the authority of the devil, of evil. And they don't want to. Most Christians don't want to do that. They want to be free. That's why they came to Jesus, because they want to be free, but they're not forgiven. And I was telling James, I said, it's so amazing that the one principal thing that Christians are supposed to be doing is not happening. And that is to forgive so that God can forgive you. And that's what love is. And it's just not happening. It's hard to find a Christian who is truly forgiven. And before you can enter into the kingdom of heaven, you must forgive. The kingdom of heaven within. And if you want to raise your children properly, you got to forgive. So that a different source can work through you. That's what got to happen. So I wanted to talk about that because here telling parents, telling the children to honor their parents. And honor means don't hate them. It doesn't mean you got to hang out and allow them to use you and all that, but just don't resent your parents. And then your life, you will have a long life, a healthy, long life. And what I've noticed over the years, and I didn't realize what it was until now, well, I kind of realized, is that these kids are growing up hating their parents, and their lives are shortened. They barely make 50 years old sometimes. They're in jail. They're having other children out of wedlock. They're dying. They're killing each other. They're beating up on each other. They're marrying the wrong people. They're getting the wrong type of education. They don't have good lives because they don't honor their parents. Their parents have taught them to resent, have caused them to resent them. And so you got look at the black community. The black community, the men and now the women barely make it to 60 years old or 50 years old. And along the way, I have met young men who are surprised when they make 25 years old or make it even to 20 years old. They don't honor their parents. They hate their parents. Their parents have caused them to resent them. But the parents would not admit it because they are Christians, all in the name of Jesus. They don't know that you must be born again so a different source can guide you. But we got to learn to honor our parents. I love my parents. I love my father. I love my mother. I would always love them, but I forgave them. Now I love them. And we got to get to that. Let me take here and then here.
I have a comment on Periscope from this person who calls himself Listen Then Reply about the Ted Cruz thing. Voting your conscience, urging people to vote your conscience, isn't a grudge.
Well, what is it?
He didn't say.
Oh, it is a grudge because he signed a pledge that said he would support Donald Trump. Whomever the nominee is, he will support them. And later on, he said that Donald Trump offended. I don't know if he used the word offended. His wife and his father, and he's not going to go up there all shivery and support him like that because he messed with my wife. He talked about my wife and my father, so it was a grudge. Now, you don't have to admit it was a grudge, but it was a grudge. Otherwise, he would have gone up there, gave a beautiful speech and said, I support Donald Trump, because he gave his word that he would. He didn't say, I support you if you don't talk about my wife or if you don't talk about my father. He signed the pledge that said, whomever it is, I would support you. And he didn't keep his word. And he didn't keep his word because it was a grudge. And we need to face the truth of it so that Ted can know that we know what he did and maybe he'll repent.
First of all, I think that Ted must have been somewhat deceptive because they could have chosen other people to speak. And he either implied that he was going to support Trump or didn't talk about it because the implication was that that's why he was going on stage, was to support Trump. So he wasn't completely being candid about what he was going to do up there. But the second thing is that he's defending or protecting his own electability going forward because he was straddling the fence. He didn't really want to support Trump because he felt like there were people that were saying they wouldn't support Trump, so he didn't want to be identified with Trump because he wants to be able to get elected later. So I believe that Cruz was very, very self-serving. He should have stayed home or not been on the podium if he couldn't support Trump, because his job was to get up on stage and say, I'm supporting Trump.
That's right. And if he had not had that anger, which I believe started with his father and maybe his mother too, but had he not had that anger, he would have been able to see clear enough to do that. But when you're angry like that, you can't see clear enough to do the right thing. You're walking in the darkness. And apparently, and this is not promoting a politician, I'm really talking about the anger of Christians and the inability to forgive and the failure of the parents, as it said in Ephesians, that caused their children to fall to resentment. So it's all about that. But had Ted Cruz not had that anger, he would have been able to see clear. And so even if he signed the pledge thing, but decided he didn't want to support Donald Trump, he would have called Donald up and said, you know what, I've decided I really can't do this. I'm staying home, I wish you well, but I can't do it. That would have been the righteous thing to do, especially being a Christian, because Christians are the salt of the earth and the light of the world. And so when our light shines, it's supposed to be bright with love and direction and patience and all that kind of stuff. And he failed at that for sure. And then the fact that he's bothered about what Trump said about his wife and his daddy, that's weakness. I bet his wife hates him for being that weak. Because one thing I know about Christianity, once you're truly born again, words don't bother you anymore. They can call you whatever they want, they can whatever, and it just roll off your back. you're protected from words. Only children of the devil are affected by words. Only children of the devil, their father the devil, are sensitive to words. Children of God are not. That's why we could be in the world but not of it. We're not motivated by our outer environment. We love in spite of our enemies hating us because our Father's love. And Satan is hate. So if apparently, and it looked like Satan may be Cruz's father, if he's hurt by what somebody said about his wife, how are you going to run for president? What's going to happen when Putin say, send that woman over here, the one that don't look that well? He going to get mad at Putin? He going to say, I'm not going to send my wife, you just talked about her. You know, words of, how you going to run a country if you are subject to words like that? A real man or woman of God are not subject to words. And I know that because I used to be sensitive to words. But now that he's changed my heart, and people call me all kind of names. They say things about me that's not true. They call me Coon, Uncle Coon, no, Uncle Tom, Coon, Head Coon, King Coon. I saw the note today when somebody said, you're going to win the Coon of Award this year. Coon Award this year. Come King Coon. They have called me all kinds of names. But as God is my witness, it doesn't bother me at all. Not one iota. Because I realize they cannot see. Why would somebody, a good person, if they saw that you were wrong or making a mistake about something, they would pray for you. They would wish you well. They wouldn't call you names. Only a blind fool would do that. One that can't see. Where is the love? And the person who calls you names and things are worse than anybody because they're the one attacking. Their Satan is their father. And so as a Christian, I would see that and understand it and not take it personally. That makes sense? And so Cruz failed on that. And I like Cruz as a person. I don't know him other than running for office. But I'm talking about the Christian aspect of Cruz. He's on a stage where the world is watching. And just imagine had he gone out there and said his thing and supported Donald Trump. We already know what Donald said about his wife. We would have so much respect for Cruz today. Like, wow, I'd like to be that way. Just forgive and move on, and we have a higher calling. I would want to be that way. That makes sense? Yeah. Let me ask you another quick question here. When it says, and parents, never drive your children to resentment, but bring them up with correction and advice inspired by the Lord. What does that say to you?
I think it means that parents should take their guidance from the Lord as to how to treat their children.
Yes. Because what happens is, because we are a spirit and we are subject to either Satan or God, and if you have not been born again, you don't have that brand new nature, you're going to guide your children with the influence of Satan. And everything he tells you to do with them will be a lie. And so you're going to cause them to anger. You're going to spoil them. You're going to spend your money on them. You're going to feel sad for them. You're going to be afraid to correct them because you don't want to lose them. You're going to do all the things wrong. And when they get of age, they're going to hate you for it. They're really going to hate you for it because in Satan, there is no love at all. Even though you feel emotional, like you feel like you love them, but there is no love. It's all hate all the time. And that emotion that you feel comes from hate. And that's why parents wonder, what happened to my child? I gave them, they lived in Beverly Hills or wherever they live. I went to the best schools, and now they hate me. Now they're friends with the children of Satan. What did I do wrong? They never overcame the hatred in their own hearts. Yes.
So can I ask you to take that a step further then? When they behave that way and you begin to see it and you're frustrated because they treat you badly and without respect,
Yeah.
you caused it, sure you did, but then you're called upon to forgive.
Right.
And then they treat you badly again.
Right.
You just keep forgiving and you just because what I'm interested in is the idea of forgetting. Then you have a clean slate then you may do the same thing over because you forget that they've treated you badly. So
Yes.
in forgiving and forgetting, you're a bit naive to the fact that they've treated you badly in the past. So if they treat you badly again, you're surprised. And it's like,
Right.
oh, but you should know because they already did this to you once. They stole from you or whatever they did. So help me with that. Forgive, forget, then you're going to get treated the same way again.
That I want you to know that is that's a perfect question. And James want to respond to it first.
I think you'll be smarter if you do forgive because you'll be able to see things clearly.
But you
And if
want to
you-
know what happens though once you forgive,
Once you
and
forgive and forget.
and then now they're doing it again. Here they come stealing from you again, or cursing you out, or being lazy, and or whatever. What do I do? Do I still have to forgive them some more?
I think so.
You think
Because suppose you forgive them and forget about it. It's not like you're the same that you were before. It's that you're already past the point where that type of thing is going to make you mad, and when you're mad, you're blind to the situation. And when you're blind to the situation, they're going to walk all over you. So if you don't forget it, then they're going to finagle some way to continue to mess with you. Or else in your own mind, it's going to continue to mess with you.
I think you should pray about it and ask God to, of course, ask God to help you to forgive them. And I think you should ask God to remind you of the things that they do so that you would remind yourself not to let them do it to you again. Or also maybe remove yourself from that person and pray for them and ask God to, until they change their life, keep them out of my life.
Have you ever forgiven anyone?
Yeah. I have.
And when they offend you again, what do?
I forgive them again, but then I remove myself out of their life. Like I don't call them anymore. I tell them, you know what, until you change your life, until you get yourself together, I can't have you in my life anymore.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I'm not going to allow you to continue to do this to me.
And have God ever forgiven you for anything?
I'm sure
Has
he
he?
has, yes.
And did you do it again?
Yeah,
And he forgave you again?
yeah,
And you did it again?
yeah.
And he forgave you again?
Yeah.
Did he remove you from his life?
No,
And are you his daughter?
yes.
So why not act like your father?
Removing somebody out of my... God is God. We're human.
But you his
it's
daughter.
No, I'm just saying, for me, I would remove somebody out of my life. Like, I'm not saying not ever talk to them again, but I'm saying until they change, I would step away from them because the Bible does tell you, like, you have to remove yourself from certain things, and maybe it means certain people.
Oh, okay. Let me just add, you want to respond to that? Oh, okay.
So one of the interesting things about forgiving and forgetting, if you do all of it, is that there is this thing that kind of takes over, sort of, some people call it grace. You can see things with the grace of God, and you will behave differently the next time. I think that's what James is trying to say. You're not the same person as you were before you forgave and forgot. And so therefore, you'll be able to deal with them with higher principles. I have situations in my own life you know about, that when you forgive, one of the interesting things about forgiveness and forgetting is this, it's one of the ways to handle this weird emotion called guilt. When you forgive somebody, you don't feel guilty about how you interacted with them in the past, and you start seeing them as they are.
Yeah.
And then by seeing them as they are, you get better and better at handling them. You don't have to get rid of them in your life. You certainly don't have to bring them in emotionally, but you will deal with them properly. And I've seen that happen, actually. So that's my view.
James was right when he said, but let me tell you about forgiveness. Once you truly forgive, forgiveness is a dying away from and waking up to another reality. When you forgive, you no longer have that spirit of unforgiveness in your heart, mind, and soul. It's gone, period. And so you're only a person of forgiveness. You live just like prior to being born again, the new nature, you're living a life of unforgiveness. You only like those that like you. You only love who you're loved. You have no patience and tolerance for the bad person, blah, blah, blah. But when you forgive, all that is gone, and now you're a brand new person. And so when someone offends you, you can see how to deal with them. Let's say your kids, right? You've caused them to resent. Now they're young adults, teenagers or whatever, and they're crazy. You know, they're stealing from you, they're lying to you, they're trying to take advantage of you. You will see how to deal with them in that moment. You have the strength to do the right thing, because doing the right thing is no longer based on how you feel about your kid. It's based on what is right. And that will give you the strength to be strong with them, to do the right thing. And as Marilyn said, if you have to get rid of them, they can't come around until they get themselves together. You also have the courage to do that too. But you don't remember what they've done. You just see they need to go and suffer and get themselves together. You can see that they can't see, they're messed up, and you have not been able to help them, so they need to go out there and suffer. That's why I tell parents, when your boys and girls become adults, especially boys, once they turn 18, put them on the street. Let them go. But make sure you have raised them in the right way to go along the way, you know, with God's encouragement. Don't spoil them. Don't be afraid to. I know fathers who are afraid to correct their children because they don't want to hurt their feelings. They waste money on their kids, and they waste all the, and it's so unnatural for men to do that. But they're doing what the mama would be doing because they haven't forgiven. So they're still operating in the wrong nature. But once you forgive, you're guided by the light now and not the darkness. So you can always see the right thing to do. And some people say, oh, how can you do that? But you see it's the right thing to do. And you do it because it's the right thing to do. It's not based on how you feel. Because now there is no more darkness in your life. It is only the light guiding you. But prior to being born again, you're only guided by the darkness. That make sense? Yes.
I have another question on Periscope from Richard. Can I forgive my father and still not want to have a relationship with him because of how he behaves? And what if I can't forget the things that he has done?
Then you haven't forgiven. Because just as God can't remember our stuff. God does not remember. Once we say we're wrong, he doesn't remember it anymore. And so if we're children of God and we have his nature, we have to be like the Father. And if the Father can forgive us and not remember, who are we to forgive somebody else but remember what they did? That's not love, and that's not forgiveness. And so the only reason that you can't do it, Richard, is that you haven't truly forgiven your father. Because once you forgive, all that stuff is gone. I'm trying to imagine myself not wanting to be around my father once I forgave him. I can't even imagine that. Because there's no war there, there are no grudges. The love of God protects me from my father. You know, I can be around him and not let him use me. I can be around him. And who am I to hold on to the mistakes he made anyway? Look at the mistake we make. And as God is forgiving us, if we are children of God, we forgive our fathers. And by the way, Richard, if you don't forgive your father, you're never going to know God anyway. You'll know about him, but you won't become a son of God. It's only the children of Satan that don't want to forgive. I want to talk about how to forgive, because I know a lot of people don't know how to do it, and that's where the problem is. I believe that most Christians want to forgive, because they always say, I forgive you, but I ain't going to forget. I forgive you, but you can't come around here and do nothing for me while I'm growing. What I realize is that it's not material things that we want from our fathers and mothers. It's with our Father, it's that soul connection that is missing. So when this boy was saying, my dad didn't do nothing for me anyway, that's not what's important anymore. He's a young man now. But it's that soul connection that boys and girls need to return to with their father. Then they'll feel completed. That's what is missing. The spirit is dying. The body has healed, but the spirit is suffering because you have not spiritually reconnected with your earthly father.
Well, two things. Richard said that he thinks that it's hard because of the nature of the things that he did.
No, that's because he's judging the nature of it. Ask Richard, has he done things that was hard for somebody else to forgive him? Have you done anything, Richard? Marilyn, tell us how.
Yes.
He said yes, see? And so you would want your kids to judge you on those things. You didn't want to do. Fathers do not want to hurt their children. Mothers do not want to hurt their children. They don't say, oh, let me find a man to have a baby with so I can hurt it. They are driven by something too that causes them to do the things they don't want to do, just as you are. So if you can understand that, it'll be fine. So, Richard, I would highly recommend you forgive your father. Go ahead, Jay.
He says, but I've never been physically abusive to anyone.
Oh, good for you. You cause all other kind of, it doesn't matter what the abuse is. Your body has healed, but your spirit has not, because you're not forgiving your father. Marilyn, tell them how to forgive.
Well, I'll just tell you something real quick that happened to me. Like, someone done something really bad to me, and I wrote that person a letter, and I told that person, you know what, I forgive you for what you've done for me. And every time that thing came up, that what that person did to me, I just said, God, I said, Father, I forgive them. And I called their name, and I said, I forgive this person for what they done to me. And the more I said it, the more the memory didn't come back to me. So I just had to say, Father, bless them, and I forgive them for what they did to me. And that's how I forgave that person. And now the stuff that person did to me, it doesn't really come up anymore. It's just like, if I see this person on the street, I will still say hi and bye to them, and I wouldn't hold any grudges. So that's the way I forgive them.
Do you remember what they did when you see them?
Yeah, but it don't hurt as much as it used to.
But your Father God will want you not to even remember. Because the only reason it's still hurting a little bit is that you're still judging them. That's why when you see them, you remember. When you remember, you're judging, and you feel the pain of judgment. The Bible Go To God want to tell us real fast how to forgive. I'm looking at the clock here. Have you ever forgiven?
Getting close to it.
So that means no?
No.
You've
No.
not forgiven.
Sometimes I believe I have because I respond correctly to a situation, or at least I think I am. And then other situations seem to overtake me. So I don't think I've forgiven
Okay.
100%.
I knew this. This is why I wanted to talk about this. I believe most people want to forgive. You want to forgive, but you just don't know how. And I'm going to tell you how. All right? But Mary, you want to help us out, Sister Mary? Have you forgiven?
No.
Oh, Lord. A sinner on the front row. At least you're sitting on the right row.
I want to get the right information. Obviously not, because I still remember.
Yeah. You know, Marilyn or the Bible Go To guy said something that I realize now, I just realize this. When God caused me to forgive 28 years ago, or however long it's been, that was the only time I ever had to forgive. Because once He caused me to forgive that issue, everything else was gone. And everything that has happened to me since then, I've never had to forgive because I never judged it. I didn't take it personally because I realized the people just couldn't see. They mean well. They couldn't help it, so I don't have to forgive. But here's how you forgive. Here's what happened to me as a witness, all right? I had this anger, and it felt you know, and the proof that I had the anger is that I was emotional and doubtful. I lived in my imagination all the time. I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. I overreacted to temptation. Did you know that temptation is a sin? Anybody? Nobody knew that, huh? Isn't that something? Temptation is a sin. That's why in the Lord's Prayer it says, lead us away from temptation, deliver us from sin. Temptation is a sin. Because temptation causes you to overreact, and once you overreact, you sin. You get mad, you carry out, you blah, blah, blah. That's why in the prayer it says, lead us away from temptation. And we are always being tempted. It's a sin to tempt and to be tempted. But anyway, and so I was 38 years old, very emotional. I came out here to California, just didn't know what I wanted to do. Went to the churches. They said it's the white man, so I got mad at the white man. And so I was feeling all this conflict on the inside. And one day, I heard a preacher say, all you have to do is forgive. Just when you pray, be still and know God. And at this point, I'm desperate because I wanted to get over this. The other churches couldn't help me. And so I finally asked God one day to let me see myself because I couldn't understand what was wrong. I'm paying tithes. I'm reading the Bible. I'm getting up in the morning and doing that praying in tongue thing. Nothing's working. So finally I said, God, let me see myself. Let me see what's wrong, what I look like. I can't see myself. And then one morning, I'm getting dressed, forgot that I asked, and he gave me a quick look on the inside. And it was pure darkness. It was evil. There's an evil darkness that's different than the night. It's a wicked light darkness. It's like, you see those movies where they have like this dark cloud will go into a room and it's like real eerie and wicked? I saw that in me. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know I looked like that on the inside. And so I wanted to know how to get past all this. So I'm sitting and I'm just quietly saying nothing, but I wanted to know the truth. And in an instant, he allowed me to see that I resented my parents. Honor your parents, right? I was not honoring my parents. I was resenting my parents. And when I saw that, he caused me to, I felt a sadness that I've never felt before. It's not like, and I felt sad about things, but this is a sadness that caused me to realize I was wrong for hating them, for resenting my parents, for being angry. And all this has happened so fast. It makes it sound like it took a while, but it just happened. He allowed me to see that I resented my parents, and that caused me to realize I was wrong. And when I accepted that, everything changed. I didn't blame them. I realized I was wrong for resenting my parents. Yes, it was wrong for what they had done, but that didn't even matter anymore. What was hurting me and keeping me away from forgiveness, I had not acknowledged that I was wrong for hating them for what they had done. And when I saw that, I'm like, wow, I had no idea. So when I went, and this is how you forgive. When you can see that for yourself, you go to your parents and you say to them, I am sorry for hating you or resenting or being angry at you because of whatever reason. I remember when you had no patience with me. Whatever it is that you resent them for. I'm sorry for hating you. I'm wrong. You don't ever go to them and say, forgive me. Would you forgive me for hating you? Don't ever do that. That's not in the Bible. Did you know that's not in the Bible? And that's what everybody does. They go to the person that they're mad at and they say, can you forgive me for being mad at you? That's not in the Bible. I brought this up on the radio show. Nobody can find it in the Bible, and I thought that was in the Bible. But it's not. It says, go and forgive, and when you forgive, I will forgive you. And so forgiveness means you admitting that you hate them, not what they've done to you, because your soul is hurting because of your hating of them. That's why your soul hurt. And when you ask people to forgive you, they're not going to forgive you because you're giving them too much power. You're causing them to play God and all that kind of stuff. You are hurting because you have not forgiven them That's what the problem is. So never say, forgive me, apologize for hating them. That makes sense? Then you shall go free. That's how you forgive. They ain't going to forgive you. You forgive them. Your problem is from hating them. That makes sense? What do you think about that, Brenda?
I was looking back toward my parents who are both gone, and I did do that. I did go to them and say, look, I realize you did the best you could with what you knew at the time, and I hold no grudge. I've forgiven you for the things that you've done, so don't carry any guilt from me. I think where I get a little tripped up is with your use of the word forget, because I don't look back and go, I remember when they spanked me. I don't care anymore. But if somebody were to say, did your mom ever spank you, I could still remember that she did.
Right.
I just don't begrudge her that anymore.
I remember
so,
my grandmother whooped me with a switch one time, and I had to go get it off the tree. But when I think about that, I have no pain from it.
Okay, so
I
it's
have
you
no-
don't remember it with emotion anymore.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
that
It's
helps
like
me.
remember the storybook,
Right.
And you can tell the story, but you're not inwardly moved by it anymore. It's not there. It's almost like you're lying.
Right.
Because mentally and emotionally, if you don't have that anymore.
Okay.
That's what I mean by
That's
forgetting.
helpful. Okay.
Right. So when you remember it, the anger doesn't come up anymore about it. The sadness doesn't come up. The grudge that you had doesn't come up because you have repented for playing God. Because all people who are angry are playing God because they're judging. Angry people judge. They judge themselves. They judge everyone else. But if you have repented, you don't judge. You see it for what it is and don't judge it. You have no opinion about it. And that's how you forgive, folks. You got to go to them and apologize for hating them, and God will forgive you, and you can be free.
Nicholas said that he's struggling to find a church home, and how does he go about doing that?
If he live in the L.A. area, come on down. If not, he could watch us every Sunday. All right? And otherwise, don't worry about it, because his body is a temple. And if God want him in a building, he'll have to go there. All right?
And then the other guy, Mr. Gold Thoughts, asked if you have fasted.
If I fast, every blue moon, whenever you see a blue moon, I'm fasting. Now, I'm not against fasting at all, but it must be inspired to do it. Don't just do it because the preacher said do it, or mama said do it, or you do it when you are inspired to do it, because you could do it for the wrong reason and destroy yourself.
Jesus' blood never failed me yet. Never failed me yet. Jesus' blood never failed me yet. There's one thing I know, He loves me so. Jesus' blood never failed.
It is honor your father and your mother. And the promise is so that you may have long life and prosper in the land. And parents, never drive your children to resentment. And parents, never drive your children to resentment, but bring them up with correction and advice inspired by the Lord. But bring them up with correction and advice inspired by the Lord, not inspired by your father the devil, but inspired by the Lord, not inspired by your father the devil. I'm adding that part. Apparently, Ted Cruz spoke at the Republican National Convention, and Ted Cruz is a Republican man who had wanted to run for president. He tried, but Donald Trump kicked him out of the water. And so he didn't succeed. As a result of that, during the primaries, Ted Cruz got angry at Donald Trump, and Donald Trump started calling him names, like lying Ted, right? And then apparently Donald talked about his wife and his father. And you don't talk about a man's wife. It's like talking about his mama. And they signed a pledge that whomever should win, they all will support that person. And as you know, it ended up being Donald Trump. And George Bush, not George, but Jeb, Ted, and the guy from Ohio refused to sign the, what's his name? Casey. Refused to sign the pledge. They didn't keep their word. And Casey didn't even show up for the convention, right? In his own hometown. He could have walked over there. But the point is, I want to mention the anger aspect of it, and that Ted Cruz ended up really making a fool of himself at the convention. And he made a fool of himself because he did not forgive. He got angry during the primary. He held on to that anger. He did not forgive. So he went to the convention, and I'm sure he and his wife and his dad, and maybe his dad and others had talked prior, right? And he went to the convention angry. And rather than going there and doing the right thing, he went and did not support Donald Trump. He got booed. He was booed. Ooh, get out of here. And his wife was on the floor, and she started having a fit about the people booing her, booing him. So they had to carry her out. And so as a result of that, for now, it looked as though Ted Cruz has really hurt his own career by doing something like that, not keeping his word. And Ted Cruz claimed to be a Christian. So you would expect more from the Christian. At least keep your word, if nothing else, right? Keep your word. But he may have ended up destroying his own career. And the point is, when you're angry, you end up making a fool of yourself, because your father, the devil, never stops talking to you. In anger, he's always feeding you ideas. And if you're angry, all angry people are blind and they can't see. So it looked like what he's telling you, or telling Ted, is the right thing to do. And so I can imagine Satan telling Ted, you know what, go there, be nice, say all these good things in the beginning, and then hit it with it by telling the folks to vote your conscience and don't support. And he's like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to do that. Because when you're angry, the lie makes sense. So he went there and he followed that. And so I was talking to James, my producer. I'm like, let's kind of look at his history, Ted Cruz's history with his father and mother. And apparently when Ted was around 3 or 4, I believe 3 or 4, his father left for a period of time, left the family. And so that tells me that Ted Cruz has a hang-up with his father and with his mother that he has not worked out yet. He is not forgiven. He is not overcome. And that's why Satan was able to convince Ed, can you read Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1 through 4?
I can do that.
This is so good. And today what I want to do is I want to go step by step as to how to be made whole again, how to overcome.
Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on earth. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord.
And that's from the regular Bible?
I'm sorry, this is whatever showed up on my Google
okay.
search.
So I have the, did you guys say this is a Catholic Bible? Somebody told me that. It says New Jerusalem. Whatever. I have children, be obedient to your parents in the Lord. That is what uprightness demands. The first commandment that has a promise attached to it is him to do such a crazy thing, to even represent Christianity in a negative way. Because a lot of folks were supporting Ted Cruz because they liked the fact that he was a Christian. They say, oh, he's a Christian, a man of God. He's against abortion. He stood up against the rest of the representatives. They loved this man because he was a Christian, right? But he didn't represent Christianity that day, because Christians do not hold grudges. They don't even remember your past. They don't remember what happened to them. They don't remember if you did them wrong or not. A real Christian don't remember that. But Ted remembered. He held on to it, and it nearly destroyed him. And that's bad for several reasons. It's going to hurt him in the long run, and it's a bad example for Christianity, because a whole lot of folks are being turned away from Christianity right now because of the way Christians are acting. Not all, but the way they're acting. And that's why the Bible said, honor your parents. Parents, don't cause your children to resent. 99.99.9% of parents are causing their children to resent because they're not getting the instruction from the Lord. They're not raising children based on the guidance of God. They're listening to their father, the devil.